Clap. Solve a classic coding interview problem from Leetcode. So this is to set the matrix zeros problem number 73, and we'll do it the code in optimal way. So we have to do in place. So we'll do in place with some constant space. So let's dive in. So let's read this question. So question is saying that Leetcode 73 set matrix zeros. So you have given matrix m cross n integer matrix, right? And if an element is 0, set its entire row and column to 0. You must do in place. For example, we have given this matrix and we have to convert it into like this, right? So if you see this matrix, right, so you have given what, m cross n matrix, and there is 3 row and 3 columns. So total cell will become, right, 3 into 3 is 9, right? So if any element is 0, right, so you must set its entire row and its column, right, to 0. As you can see, the entire rows and columns become 0. But here is a catch: you must do it in place, right? Because the question is saying you have to do it in place without using extra space, right? You have to do that, right? So at cell here, what is the value is there? So if this is 0 0, this is 0 1, this is 1 0, so this will become what, 1 1. So at 1 1 cell, at 1 1, the value is 0, so we have to mark it its upper cell, down cell, right cell and left cell, right? We have to mark all of them as a 0, as you can see. So if this is the cell at 1 1, we have to mark its upper one, down one, left one, right one, means entire in this matrix. It means we have to complete row and complete column we have to mark, right? So so there is a one basic idea to do this problem to solve, right? What is this idea? So if you understand the brute force, right, so first go through the brute force approach, what time complexity will come, and then think about the optimal one. So once you will have the clear understanding of brute force, right, so you can easily optimize it through the optimal approach, right? So let's do one basic idea. So our first one basic idea is to use extra space, like there is two arrays will be there to track all the zeros and columns, but that is you can say it will take O of m plus n space. That is not ideal, but if we want to optimize it, right, using the optimal approach, we can do that, right? But at least you should have the clear understanding of the brute force approach. Like we will have to find the basic approach, what we need to do, like basic ideas should be there. Either you are using extra space or not, right? Means at least you say there is a two array will be there, and that array will track one zeros and other will column, right? So all the zeros in the row and all the zeros in the column, so we will take two arrays, one for the all the zeros in the row and one for the all the columns in the zeros, right? So we'll take two extra spaces, and so if there is m and there is n, so it will take O of m plus n size, right? But this is not ideal, so just you can tell in the interview that this will be the brute force approach, that we can do that. Okay, just think about the optimal one, how we can do that, right? So how do we do in O of 1 time? So if the brute force approach is taking O of m plus n size, right, a space, so how you are going to do in place, means O of 1 times a space. So the trick is you can use the first row, right? Let's suppose first row and first column will take in this, and of this matrix to mark the row and column needs to be 0. So first row and first column you take as a mark this as a 0, and then walk through the thing. So let's understand how I'm trying to say that, right? So for example, let's suppose that our goal is to set the row and column in place. So if any cell is 0, so if any cell is 0, so we'll mark this complete row and column as a 0, right? So in the first step, right, in the first step, what we need to do? So if this is our matrix, right, where we have given in the first example 1 1 1 1 0 1 and then 1 1 1, right? as you can see here we have given in this example. So what we need to do, right? So first of all, we'll mark it, the first row and first column will mark it, right? So we will detect if the first row and the first column needs to be 0, right? So if we can do that, right? So first we will go through the first row and first column, and go through loop it and check if we can do the 0, right? So how we are going to do? First check the first row, right? How we are going to check the first row? So first row we have 1 1 1, right? 1 1 and 1. You can read it from here also. So we have 1 1 and 1, right? So number of 0 is, there is no 0, right? It means it's false. So for the first row is false. Then we'll check for the column. So we'll go for the column, right? And we'll check uh, all the columns having data is 1 1 1. So there is no zeros. So first column is also, we have to mark as a false, right? Understand, right? So what we are trying to do, right? So first of all, you will have the, let's suppose you will find the matrix dimension. So you can find the number of columns, number of rows like m and n, you can find, right? Then you have to track the first row and column. So if in the first row and the first column, right, it should be 0 or not. So it should be 0, right? Means we have to track the first row and the column needs to be 0, and for that we have to define the first row 0 and the first column 0. So once we will start traversing, so detect the first row and column that needs to be 0. How you are going to do? You have to do like this, right? Then we'll go for scanning all the first row and the first column, and we'll separately check if there is any 0 is there, right? So just update that there is a 0. If there is a 0, right, you have to mark this first row as a true and the first column as a true, right? Then we'll go for the state. So if we talk about the steps, right, so we have not found till now any row and columns as a 0, so we'll mark it as a false for now. And then in the next step we will use the first row and column as a marker. So how we are going to do marker? So in step 2 we'll use the first row and column to mark zeros, right? So we'll start from 1 1, right, as we know. So we have to loop from I equal to 1 to m minus 1 and j equal to 1 to m minus 1, because if you remember, right, where we was 0 at 1 1, right? So from for 1 1 what we have to do, we have to loop two loop. So I equal to 1 to m minus 1 and j equal to 1 minus 1, means from here we have to traverse to all the uh, all the row and columns, right, you can say. And for that, this is the loop we have to make. So at matrix you have to set as matrix at 1 1 is 0, that is already marked, or you can say let's mark it and mark matrix at 1 0 is equal to 0, mark row 1, right? So 1 0 we have to mark. So let's suppose 1 and 0, so we have to mark this one, right? Similarly we have to mark the 0 1, right? So we have to mark row and column. So let's suppose if this is row and this is column, so we have to mark it. Okay, in the next step we have to apply 0 using marker, right? So what we have to do, we have to zero out the matrix using those markers. So we have to loop it again, and we have to check for each cell if matrix at this is 0 and matrix at this is 0, then set it to 0, right? If either is 0, just set it at 0. So in the iteration details, if you'll see 1 1 is already 0, right? Then matrix at 1 2, the row is 1, and we have to mark row 1 is mark 1 2, right? And then we have to set it as 0, right? So we'll do this. And similarly at 2 1 we have to also mark it, right? And we have to set it as a 0. So if we talk about the final output, right, so we have zero out the matrix using those markers, and it is the final output. So 0 means 0 out first row and column is needed, right? And so we have to set first row equal to false, don't touch the first row, and the first column will say false, so don't touch the first column also, right? No change is needed because already is done, right? Now what we have to do, we have to summarize this one so you have the clear understanding. First, this is our input, you can say array. You have to mark it as like this, and finally once you will mark it, right, so matrix 0 based markers, and finally we'll update the first row and column if needed. Okay, so I hope you understand, guys. Let's go to understand the code in the uh, Leetcode. Multiple examples are there. You pause this and go through the example so you will understand what the question is saying, right? So you will understand the code. Okay, so first of all, what we need to do in the very first step, what we have to do, we will do the first row and column as zeros, right? So first row 0, first column 0 will mark as a false, right? Why? Because once you will have the you will determine the m and n, right? Means the dimension of the matrix. Your job is to first track the first row and column, right? That needs to be zeros, right? So if the first row has any zeros, right, so you will go through the column, then you have to mark at matrix at 0j is equal to 0. If this is the case, we'll mark it as a true and will return, will break it. Okay, next we'll check for the columns. If any column has 0, right, for the first column, so for the first column you have to mark it as I and 0. So I will keep moving in the first row, right, like this, and at 0 this is the 0 column, so it will traverse like this. Similarly that we have done here. Okay, for the 0 row. So in both cases, once you will traverse all the you can say you will scan, right, in the next step. If you scan the first row and column, right, separately, sorry, so the first we have to use the first row and column as a marker, right? It means we want to use the first row and column as a marker, and so that what we will do, we have to traverse from 1 to m minus 1 and j to n minus 1, right? So for that, start from like this, these two loop we have to do, and check if any I and j is 0. If this is the case, you just mark as its row and column set at just 0, right? If anywhere if you are finding that, right? So if you found I and j, like let's suppose for this example, right, so if we will traverse all this loop, right, all this loop, right, so what will happen, you will find the I 0, you have to mark it as 0, so you will mark it as a 0. Similarly, when you are going for the column 1, so matrix at 0j, you have to mark it as a 0, right? So in this case, because this is I at 0 and 0 at j, so we are marking the first column itself. So first time you have to mark at 0 here and 0 here. Remember the first column that we have marked in the step, like 0 and 0, not these zeros, right? These zeros we will do later. Now we have to build out the next zeros, right? Zero out the cells based on the marker. So you have to see the marker, right? So again you will make the loop, you will check if I0 is 0, because we have already marked it, right? As you can see at line number 29 and 30 we have checked, so those condition will check here. And if the I0 is 0 and Z0 is 0, right, in both cases, if this is available either of them, then we have to mark IC is 0. Okay, and then you are able to mark it. So let's do the 0 out the first row if needed. So you have to mark it, check if it is the condition is true, it means first row is 0, so it is true that we have to mark it as a 0. So you can do 0j at 0, you can mark it as 0. Similarly you can do for the columns, and that's all for you here. I think you understand the steps, right? So first of all, what we need to do, right? So first of all, uh, you find the dimension of the matrix, then track the first row and columns that needs to be 0. So initially mark it as a false, then scan the first row and the first column, right? And then update the first row 0 and first column 0 variables, so that we can use the first row and column as a marker, right? And we once we will use this as a marker, right? So first check the ij is 0, then set its row and column as a marker. And once you have marked that, then you zero out the cells based on the markers, check the markers. If it is 0, mark the other cells as a 0, right? And further, 0 or the matrix, those are the markers. And then similarly we'll update the first row column if needed, right? Like first row and the first row and columns, right? We will update that, right? So that's it, guys. This solution runs in m cross n size because this is matrix, right? And the space we have not used anywhere, right? So this will be constant of 1 times. So this is a super efficient and perfect for the interview. So if you have any doubt, please let me know in the comment box. Don't forget to subscribe for more DSA content. Drop a comment if you want the same solution, and in the comment. So let's see you in the next video, guys. Thank you for watching this video, and please keep subscribing this channel if you are new at this expert funda, and keep liking the video so more viewers will come, and we will directly or indirectly will support the expert funda, and will provide you the best content so that your preparation journey will become easy for you, and you will remember always the expert funda. Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching.